welcome back to Kardec Radio for Teens. For those of you who don't know, Kardec Radio for Teens is a place where teens can talk to teens and learn about the Spiritist doctrine and understand what is being taught. Because sometimes it's really hard for us to just listen to an adult lecture or listen to a teacher and instructor, or sometimes just reading a book. It's really hard for us to just understand it right away. So sometimes putting it in our own language and how we talk as teens, how we understand things as teens, it's easier if we're talking together and putting it into our own words. It's easier for us to understand. So hopefully throughout this radio show, we're able to learn some positive messages that we can put into our lives and hopefully clear up some things that we were confused about before. 2 weeks ago, we started with a new kind of thing to the show about reading the Spirits book. I know as most of us teens, we've never picked up one of those books from the Santhru, and we don't read them, we don't even look at them, we just assume that the adults know it and that's all we need to know about them. So we never really pick it up, we've never read it. But why is that? Because it's so important to what we believe in, what we practice, what we're learning from. Why haven't we actually ever read the book that basically sums it all up? We always assume, oh, that's the grown-ups that need to know it, that's the grown-ups that need to know it. But as we're getting older and older, now high school and college, we're going to be the grown-ups. So we're going to need to know this stuff, so it's better if we get a head start on it now and already start to learn it and understand it, because we're just going to have so much more to learn when we're adults. We're not going to have to stick with the basics. We can get that out of the way and continue on. So I don't know about you guys, but I've really enjoyed starting to read this book and to go through it and to truly understand it, because even I'm learning so many things just reading it myself, so I hope you guys are learning as much as I am. So I'd like to continue where we left off in the part of the introduction. Like we've mentioned before, the introduction is a pretty long part, even though most introductions is 2 pages and we all just skip it and no one reads it and we go straight to the story. This introduction is a good portion of the book. It's like longer than a chapter in a normal book, but it's really important that we go through it and we read it, because the introduction of this book, it sets up the foundation for what we're going to be learning in this whole entire book. So if we don't have the foundation, if we don't know the little things in the beginning, the little details, little definitions in the beginning, if we don't understand that right away, then how are we going to understand the rest of the book? So it's really important that we do take the time to go over the introduction and read it carefully, even though that's the part that most people just skip over. And the good thing is that maybe a lot of us don't have the time to read this huge book, and we have so much schoolwork coming on, like homework, projects, tests, whatever it is. There's so much going on, after school activities, work. There's so many things going on that it's hard to be like, oh, let me just sit down and read a book, because we don't find a lot of time. So here we can do that, at least for half an hour a week. We can sit down and read this or listen to it, and we can learn at least a little bit each week from that. So let's get right to it and jump in where we left off at part 6 of the introduction. As we stated previously, the beings who communicate have identified themselves as spirits, and at least some of them say that they have lived before as human beings on earth. They comprise the spirit worlds, as during our life on earth we comprise the corporeal world. So just in that little beginning paragraph, we got a lot of information. It's saying that first, the beings who are communicating are the spirits, which we clarified before. They identify themselves as spirits. And this is an interesting part, that some of them say that they have lived as humans before on earth. And they comprise the spirit world, as during our life we comprise the corporeal world. So it's saying that they're kind of related. How they see the spirit world, how they live in the spirit world, is kind of the same way how we do things on earth. And then it continues. We will now briefly sum up the main points of the doctrine that they have transmitted to us, so that we may more easily reply to certain objections. God is eternal, immutable, immaterial, one, all-powerful, and supremely just and good. So right there, that's a really big statement. That's saying exactly what God is. God is the one, the all-powerful. He is just and good. That means that's already clearing some objections of people saying, oh, but why is God letting do this? No, just as God is just and good, there must be a reason. So that's the first thing they state, so it must be important. Then it says, God created the universe, which includes all animate and inanimate, material and immaterial beings. The material beings comprise the visible or corporeal worlds, whereas the immaterial beings comprise the invisible or spirit worlds, i.e., the worlds of spirits. The spirit world is the normal, primitive, external, pre-existent, and all-surviving world. So let's just go over a couple of those that they just gave us. So they said that God created the universe. They're not asking a question. They're not saying maybe. They're saying definitely. And that includes everything, inanimate and animate objects. And they're going on to the spirit's world and describing it. And they say it's the all-surviving world. It's the normal and pre-existent world that's around. Then it continues. The corporeal world is secondary. It could cease to exist, or it might never have existed in the first place, without changing the essence of the spirit world. So that's really important because it's showing us that the spirit world is actually the one that's kind of on top, if you say, like, if we're ranking them, it's the spirit world on top, and then the earth is below because the spirit world is the existent world. That's all surviving. It's always going to be there. But the earth, there's chances that earth wasn't even going to become a planet where humans live, or there was chances that it can cease to exist, that we can stop, like the earth as we live on it today can stop existing. So it's really diverse in how many things can happen to it, but the spirit world, it's just that, it's all surviving. And then it continues. Spirits temporarily take on a perishable material envelope, and its destruction by death returns them to freedom. From among all the different species of corporeal beings, God chose the human species for the incarnation of spirits who have reached a certain degree of development. This endows them with a moral and intellectual ascensions over the others. So now it's going to the spirits incarnating in earth. And it's saying how the spirits take on a perishable material envelope, like our body, and when death comes for the body, then they go back into the spirit world. So the spirit doesn't die, but just the material body, or the package envelope that they call, that's what dies, technically. The soul is an incarnated spirit. The body is only its envelope. Human beings are composed of three things. First, the body or material being, similar to that of the animals and animated by the same vital principle. Second, the soul or immaterial being, the spirit incarnated in the body. And third, the link that unites the soul to the body, an intermediate principle between the body and spirit. So just to sum that up, so there was three things that make up human beings. The body, the material thing that we see, feel, that we are. 2, the soul, that's immaterial. And 3, the link that connects those two. Then it continues. Human beings thus have two natures. By means of their body, they share the nature of the animal, and share the same instincts. But by their means of soul, they share the nature of the spirits. The link, or perispirit, unites the body and the spirit. It is a sort of semi-material envelope. Death destroys only the denser envelope, the physical body. The spirit retains the perispirit, which comprises its ethereal body. The perispirit is invisible to us in its normal state, but the spirit can render it visible and even tangible, as occurred during the phenomena of apparitions. Therefore, a spirit is not an abstract, indefinable being that can only be conceived of by thought. It is a real, circumscribed being that in certain cases may be perceived by our senses of sight, hearing, and touch. So this part, they they gave a name to that link that we were connecting the body and the spirit. They gave it the name of the perispirit. And they said this is a sort of semi-material envelope. So while the spirit doesn't have an envelope, and the body is a material envelope, this is a semi-material. So again, it falls in between the spirit and the body. And it's also emphasizing how the perispirit remains with the spirit and it doesn't die with the physical body. Spirits belong to different orders, and they are not all equal in power, intelligence, knowledge, or morality. Those of the first order are the most highly evolved spirits. These spirits are distinguished by their perfection, knowledge, and closeness to God, in addition to their purity of their sentiments and their love of the good. They are angels or pure spirits. The other orders are in various degrees more distant from such perfection. The spirits of the lowest orders shall share a base passion, hatred, envy, jealousy, pride, etc., and actually take pleasure in wrongdoing. Among these are spirits who are neither very good nor very evil, and who are usually more troublesome and scheming than downright wicked. Essentially mischievous and inconsequential, they are foolish and frivolous spirits. So they're defining the highest point and the lowest point, really. So they're saying that the highest point, it's their perfection, their knowledge, their closeness to God. They're basically like angels that you see in movies. But there also are those that are not, sometimes they're not pretending to be evil. Like, they're not saying that they're evil, they're not trying to be good, but they're just kind of in the middle. They're just kind of still doing mischief and doing little tricks and being all over the place and being silly, and they're not serious. So those are lower down. But we aren't just stuck in the same level forever, which is what the next part goes on to explain. Spirits do not belong to the same order forever. They all improve themselves, passing through different degrees of the spirit hierarchy. This improvement occurs through incarnation, which impose on some of an expiation and others as a mission. Earthly life is a trial, to which they submit themselves many times until they reach perfection. It is a kind of sifter or purifier from which they emerge at different degrees of refinement or improvement. Upon leaving the body, the soul returns to the spirit world from which it came. Following a longer or shorter stay in the spirit world, it will once more start a new life in the physical life. So that's really important because it's saying how, just because there's levels of spirits who are really perfect and spirits who aren't that great, and there's all in between, you're not stuck in the same level forever. You keep improving and evolving, and you keep going through missions and expiations, and you keep trying to get better and better, and you'll move up. You'll always progress, and you'll keep moving until you do reach that level of perfection, as no matter how long it takes. So then again, it's saying how upon leaving the body, after it goes back to the spirit world, it'll stay there for a time, and then it'll go back to earth to start learning some more, to try and do some better things to improve more. And then it continues. Since our spirits must pass through many incarnations, it follows that we have many existences, and that we have still others along the course of different stages of advancement. This will occur either on the earth or on other worlds. So one key part that they're explaining is that since we do have to go through many different lives to improve, that's saying that we do have many different existences of the same spirit. Not the same body, but the same spirit. And they're also saying that it doesn't have to be just on earth, because a lot of us on earth and throughout history, people thought that we were like the center of the universe. They thought that everything revolved around the earth. We're the only one with any type of life on it. But that's not true. There's life on all these other planets. We just haven't discovered it yet, but they're out there, and we could incarnate on them if that was necessary for us to learn. The incarnation of spirits always occurs in the human species. It would be an error to believe that the soul or spirit could incarnate in the body of an animal. So that's really important to understand, because a lot of people think, oh, well, maybe if you did this, you're going to come back as a frog the next life, or a cow. And we don't do that. We always come back as human beings. We don't go into animals. We don't become animals, I should say. The many corporeal lives of a spirit are always progressive and never regressive, but the speed of its progress depends on the effort that is made to reach perfection. So that's important, because it's saying how no matter how many lives it's going to take you to get better, you can keep going and going and going, and you may be stubborn and you'll be staying in the same place, but you're never going to go backwards. You're never going to unlearn something. It's like if you learned it, it's yours. You keep that with you. So that'll keep going with you. It's just to not be stubborn, to not stay in doing nothing for going on and on and on, because it's just going to take you as many lives as you need to improve on that to get it right, but it'll keep going and you'll never go a step backwards. You'll always be moving forward. The qualities of the soul are those of the incarnated spirit. Thus, a moral person in the incarnation of a good spirit, while a wicked person is that of a little evolved spirit. So that's showing us to believe that the spirit is connected with the moral, the brain of the person, because if it's a good spirit, then they'll be a good person. If it's a bad person, then it'll be a bad spirit. Like, they relate. The soul has its own particular individuality before incarnating, and it retains it after it separates from the body. Upon its return to the spirit world, the soul re-encounters all those whom it had known while on earth, and all of its former lives are delineated in its memory. It can thus recall all the good and evil it had done. So that's saying once a body dies and the spirit goes back into the spirit world, they remember all the past lives, and they remember everyone that was in it and all the good and bad they've done. They can remember everything. Because right now, we don't remember any of that, because it's not necessary for us to remember. And if we did remember, it would be worse for us. Because imagine if you were terrible. Because not that we were all started off terrible, but we all did wrongdoings and we're all working to get better. So in the beginning, if you did something really terrible and that's affecting you, how are you going to be able to move on? Because you're just going to think, oh, I did that, I did that. So we forget. It's honestly a blessing for us to forget, so that we can try to improve and move on without our mistakes hanging over our heads. The incarnated spirit is under the influence of matter. Persons who overcome this influence by elevating and purifying their soul grow closer to the good spirits, among whom they will encounter someday. However, those who allow themselves to be controlled by their evil passions, and who take full pleasure in satisfying their crude appetites by yielding to their animal nature, grow closer to the lower order spirits. Incarnated spirits inhabit various globes throughout the universe. So those two statements are saying how you connect with the other spirits that have the same mindset as you. If you're wanting to do something bad, to do something troubling, to do something maybe not to harm other people, but to trick other people, to mess with them, then you're going to connect with those lower level spirits. But if you're trying to do good, if you want to do good and that's what you want to do, so you'll connect with the higher, better spirits. And it's also saying how the incarnated spirits inhabit various globes throughout the universe. So that's again saying that it's not just our Earth, because especially now science is getting more in depth, and we believe that there is life on other planets. But if you go back in history just of the Earth, people thought that we were the center of the universe, that there was no life anywhere else, but we know that isn't true. Disincarnated or arrogant spirits do not occupy any fixed or circumscribed region. They are everywhere, in space and behind us, watching and intermingling with us all the time. They comprise an invisible population that is always active around us. So basically it's saying that spirits don't take up the same amount of room we take up. It's not exactly how we are, but they're always around. There's an invisible population that's always interacting with us and around us, but we just don't see it because that's why it's invisible. but it's everywhere, and it might not be exactly how we see our physical bodies with the person next to us physical body, but they are everywhere, and they're all around us, and even though they're invisible, they're always active. Spirits constantly act upon the mental world and even upon the physical world. They act upon matter and thought. They compromise one of the powers of nature and are the actual cause behind a multitude of phenomena that have been unexplainable or poorly explained until now, and which have found a rational solution except Spiritism. Interaction between spirits and humans is constant. Good spirits encourage us to follow the path of the good. They support us in the trials of life and help us to bear them with courage and resignation. Evil spirits, on the other hand, encourage us to take the path of evil. It is a pleasure for them to see us succumb and fall to their level. So there again, they're stressing the fact about how you connect with what you want to connect with. So the evil spirits, they're going to be looking to tell you the wrong thing, to lead you down the wrong path. And if you're connecting with that, if you're trying to do that too, if you're listening to what they're saying, then you're going to fall down into that evil path with them and just be one of them. So you want to try and listen and to the good spirits and communicate with good spirits, because they're trying to help you and they're really trying to do their best and to teach you, unlike the evil spirits who might just be messing with you. Spirit communication with humans are either concealed or direct. Concealed communications, undetectable in a physical sense, occur through the good or bad influences they exert on us without our even suspecting it, and it depends on our own judgment to distinguish between their good and bad inspirations. Direct communication occurs through writing, speech, or other physical means, usually by way of mediums who serve as their instruments. So that section there is saying how the spirits can communicate with us, and it can be a concealed communication when maybe an idea just pops into our head out of nowhere. And so maybe it was a spirit trying to hint at something to try and help us to go in the right direction. Or maybe it could be a direct communication, which is directly through writing or speech or hearing. Spirits manifest either by appearing spontaneously or by being evoked. We can evoke all spirits, whether they have animated obscure individuals or the most illustrious personages, regardless of when they lived. We can evoke our relatives, friends, or enemies. Through writing or verbal communication, we may obtain advice, information about their current situation, their thoughts about us, whatever relevance they are permitted to convey. So that's saying how when we're communicating to the spirits, that it can be any spirit. You don't know, oh, only the good ones can communicate to you. No, it can be any of them, and it really could be anyone, and they could tell you as much or as little as they want to. Spirits are attracted according to the affinity they have with the moral nature of the persons who evoke them. Higher order spirits enjoy serious meetings, where the love of the good and a sincere desire to learn and grow predominates. Their presence repels low-order spirits. These find free access to and can access frivolous persons or those who are only guided by curiosity, or wherever else evil instincts may be found. Rather than receiving any good advice or useful information from these spirits, we should expect nothing more from them than frivolous lies, mischiefs, pranks, and deceitfulness. They frequently are venerable names in order to better induce us to error. So that's showing how the good spirits, that they are trying to help us and to learn, and they want to do good, so they'll be telling us good things and helping us. But the evil spirits, they just want to mess with you. They just want to play around. So they might say that they're someone important. They might say, oh, I'm the most important person on the world. They might say whatever name that you think is important, and you'll believe them. But they're actually not that person. They're saying something wrong, and they're just tricking you. So we have to be really careful with that. Nevertheless, distinguishing between good and evil spirits is extremely easy. The language of high-order spirits is always dignified, noble, imbued with the highest morality, and free from every lower passion. Their counsels reveal the highest wisdom and always address our progress and the good of humankind. Lower order and inconsequential spirits are almost always trite and can never be crass. They might sometimes say things that are good and true, but more often they make erroneous and absurd statements, either out of malice or ignorance. They laugh at people's gullibility and amuse themselves at the cost of those who question them, flattering their vanity and cajoling their desires with false hopes. In sum, serious communications, in the perfect meaning of the term, only occur at serious centers, where the members are united by an intimate communion of thought directed toward the good. So this again is just saying how these evil spirits, they're just trying to play tricks on you. They enjoy that you think that they're serious when they're not. And it could be really easy to distinguish between them because the higher level spirits, they always speak very dignified and noble, and they're always trying to send a good message and to talk about good important things, and they're always serious in a serious place at a serious time. But the frivolous ones, when people are playing those games or like in those movies, they're not trying to do good, and it's pretty easy to tell because they have a lower level of language, and even though they might try and be tricking you with some good stuff, they're still being, maybe it's just that they don't know better and they're saying some wrong things in there, so that's how you catch the difference between the good and the bad. The morality of higher spirits may be summed up in the gospel maxim of Christ: do unto others as you would like them to do unto you. That is, practice the good and not evil. In this principle, humankind finds the universal rule of conduct, even for the smallest actions. They teach us that selfishness, pride, and lust are passions that drag us down to our animal nature, keeping us enslaved to the matter. That those on earth who free themselves of matter throughout their disregard for worldly frivolous, and who cultivate love for their neighbors, draw closer to their spiritual nature. That each one of us should make ourselves useful according to the faculties and means that God has placed in our hands to put us to the test. That the strong and powerful should support and protect the weak, for those who abuse their strength and power in order to oppress others violate God's law. Lastly, they teach us that nothing can be hidden in the spirit world, that hypocrites will be unmasked there, and all their evil exposed. That inevitable and constant presence of those whom we have harmed is one of the punishments awaiting us there. That the uninvolved and evolved states of spirits in the world corresponds to sorrow and joy that are unknown to us on earth. So here they're just trying to emphasize that we should be trying to do good, to following the good, because we don't want to be stuck being the frivolous spirits that are considered evil, that are doing the wrong thing, even sometimes just because they don't know better. But we don't want to be stuck in that mentality. We want to get past it. We want to be the good spirits. We want to get to that point. So we have to love each other and not be selfish and not just be driven by pride and lust, and have some good qualities and try and work on those good qualities and to make them even better. So we want to do the good and not the evil is basically what they're trying to say in that whole paragraph. And they're also saying how as much as here on earth we cover up our mistakes and what we did, and how sometimes even we forget. We did a mistake and we forgot. But when you go to the spirit world, those mistakes are all visible and you can't hide it. You can't say, oh, I didn't say that. When you're in the spirits world, there's no saying that because everyone knows. And then it continues. However, they also teach us that there are no unforgivable sins, none that cannot be erased by expiation. Depending on our desire and effort, we find the necessary means to expiate them in the many existences that enable us to advance on the path of progress toward perfection, our final objective. So they're saying that no matter how many mistakes we made, there's always a way for us to make it up, for us to try again, to get back on our feet, and to improve on it. And no matter how many lives it's going to take us, we'll be able to improve on it eventually. This is the summary of the Spirit's doctrine as it appears in the teaching of the Spirits. So that was the whole part 5 of the introduction, and that was a pretty lengthy summary of the Spirit's doctrine, but I think that was really important because that was a quick overview of about everything in such a quick amount of time. So that was really cool to look at all those different topics and all those little things all in one sitting. And now I would just like to end off with our little message from the Daily Book of Positive Quotations for today, September 20th. Being gifted. It is one thing to be gifted, and quite another thing to be worth one's own gift. Extraordinary talent doesn't, unfortunately, mean extraordinary character. If we're fortunate enough to stand out in some way, we should acknowledge this as a gift, not an entitlement. I may be able to do something better than most others, and I'm fortunate if that is the case, but I am not a better person than others simply because of my talent. I hope we can all take that message and what we learned today in the Spirit's book and take that throughout our weeks of school or work or after school activities, homework, whatever it may be, and trying to apply it to something to help us through the week. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, whatever it may be, feel free to email me at kardecradioforteens@gmail.com, and I'll answer to you right away. This has been Kardec Radio for Teens. Thank you all for listening.